Okay, so as Ben mentioned, controlled frequency breathing in competitive swimmers. So controlled frequency breathing, it's not simply breath holding, it's a deliberate and systematic decrease in the frequency at which a swimmer takes a breath. Now it differs between normal frequency breathing in that normal frequency breathing, a swimmer determines when they take a breath, thus they can breathe at variable intervals. So there's two forms, got these two forms here. So firstly we've got ascending, so taking one breath every 3, 5, 7, possibly 9 strokes. And then we have continuous, so one breath every 5, 5, so the same interval number of strokes. So within this presentation I'll be using controlled frequency breathing, the acronym CFB, and in normal frequency breathing, NFB. So coaches have two theories as to why they implement this breathing frequency within their training programs. Firstly, they believe that it will elicit an improvement in stroke coordination for their swimmers. And secondly, they believe that it will increase aerobic and anaerobic conditioning greater than that experienced when using normal frequency breathing. Now currently, the previous research has only examined the responses to controlled frequency breathing at submaximal conditions, so 85% of your personal best time or less, usually 65% of the time is being used, or under tethered swimming conditions. So this is an apparatus where you have a belt tied around your waist, for instance, and weighted against it, so you're either stationary in the water, usually as well. It's also in terms of submaximal, so competition is obviously maximum performance. It's obviously important with any research to review what's actually going to occur within competition. Therefore, the aim of the current study was to determine the impact on the performance, the physiology and the stroke characteristics in high-level competitive swimmers. So we used an N-Swiss regional training squad, obviously competing at open state or open national levels, under maximal exertion and free swimming conditions, so non-tethered conditions. So we had 3 proposals, so 3 hypotheses. We believed that controlled frequency breathing would result in an increase in performance time, and also it would result in an associated increase in our physiological load as well. In terms of our stroke characteristics, we had stroke rate and stroke length. Now, within the study, our findings demonstrated there was actually no difference between normal frequency breathing and controlled frequency breathing in the stroke characteristics, so completely the same within this, the two conditions. So in order to test our hypotheses, we recruited 9 high-level competitive swimmers to perform 2 maximal efforts using normal frequency breathing versus controlled frequency breathing following a 2-week familiarisation period. So each swimmer was provided with their own personal CFB pattern. Okay, so this was determined from initial testing where we videoed the swimmers and determined their normal stroke rate, their stroke length and their breathing pattern. They then utilised a CFB pattern designed for them in the familiarisation and maximal effort trials. Now the CFB pattern that we used was 2 strokes above your average NFB. So for instance, if you breathe say every 3 strokes, so 1 breath every 3 strokes, with your CFB you'll take 1 breath every 5 strokes. So we used the continuous method, not the ascending method. This is the layout of the design that we used. We had a camera placed here, so on the 25 mark, and we had the swimmers swimming in the middle 2 lanes as per the seeded lanes in competition. It is a 50-metre pool, again, as per competition. So we measured several variables. In terms of performance, we had overall time and also split times, so every 25 metres. In terms of blood, we had lactate, also pH, carbon dioxide levels, so PCO2 levels, oxygen levels, so PCO2 levels, and we also had buffering capacity, so HCO3 levels. As I mentioned before, stroke rate and also stroke length. So in terms of our performance, we actually found that there was no significant difference in mean performance time, so it was disproved our hypothesis. And it's important to note that our maximum exertion that we found between the swimmers, we took their best time, so their performance best time, and we compared it to the time that they completed within the 2 studies. We found that it was 94% of their best time in NFB and 93% of their best time in CFB. So this is considerably higher than the exertion used in other previous studies. What we did find, however, was that 5 swimmers actually did swim faster in the CFB condition, and 4 swimmers actually swam slower. So we had a difference of 3 seconds faster and 10 seconds slower with our swimmers. So this highlights that there's clearly an individual difference in the responses to using CFB. Possible reasons for this were suggested the previous use of actually using CFB within a training program at all, and also the level of athletic skill as well of each of the individual swimmers. What we concluded was that further investigation was required to actually determine whether these responses in a large population were actually indicative of the same responses observed here, so whether swimmers actually do swim faster or do swim slower using this breathing frequency. In terms of our lactate responses, we actually found that there was an increase in physiological load observed in the normal frequency breathing condition, as we can see just here, compared to the controlled frequency breathing condition, which goes against what we actually hypothesised. So increase in lactate is normally associated with an increase in physiological load, and also an increase in lactate is usually related to a decrease in oxygen levels within the blood. However, we actually didn't find any significant decrease in oxygen levels or any significant difference between the two conditions, which is quite surprising within our oxygen concentrations. Therefore, we can determine from this that lactate concentrations actually didn't have a significant effect on performance, and that the actual intensity and physiological load was not actually increased as a result of using controlled frequency breathing. In terms of carbon dioxide levels, we actually found a significant increase in carbon dioxide compared to normal frequency breathing in this condition. Now, carbon dioxide levels, they vary in accordance to ventilation rate, and obviously this is what we were controlling within this condition. High levels of carbon dioxide are usually associated with an increased drive to breathe. It affects one of the centres within your brain. You're actually told to breathe. Obviously we prevented this from occurring within our swimmers, and this condition, when you actually have very high levels of carbon dioxide, results in hypercapnia. Now, so our swimmers did experience hypercapnia within this study, which is obviously not a very good position to be in. Now, our results were in accordance with previous studies. It has been reported that they have, even under submaximal conditions, found an increase in carbon dioxide levels within the blood. Physiological load, therefore, when relating to carbon dioxide levels, was increased as a result of using CFB. So in conclusion, overall performance time, physiological characteristics and stroke characteristics were inconsistent among the swimmers tested. And intensity was markedly greater, so it wasn't significantly greater, only markedly greater in the NFB condition compared to the CFB condition when relating to lactate concentrations. It was speculated that it's possible that the carbon dioxide levels have a greater influence possibly on overall performance time compared to increased lactate levels when you're using controlled frequency breathing. Finally, further investigation is required in a larger sample size. We only used 9 swimmers, which is quite small. However, they were highly competitive, so obviously the results are quite relevant, to basically validate our findings to determine whether, particularly for performance time, whether swimmers do actually swim faster or slower. So in terms of practical applications, it was previously thought that an increase in decrease the frequency of breathing would actually promote an aerobic and anaerobic conditioning. Our study did not support this theory. We didn't actually find that it increased their intensity level in terms of lactate concentrations. Instead, CFB can be used to increase a swimmer's tolerance of carbon dioxide levels. So obviously this is quite important in events from the middle distance to the long distance range for the 400 and the 800 and 1500 metre freestyle. Most significantly, we found it was possible to alter a swimmer's breathing frequency mid-season, and some swimmers may actually not have a detrimental effect on their performance time, which is obviously useful in terms of the confidence of the use of the method for the athlete and the coach as well. Any questions at all?